Well, thank you everybody for joining us today for the industry update. As always, please mute your lines and use the chat feature if you have any questions. We appreciate you getting on this webinar with us right before the holidays. John, I am going to pass it over to you to give Melissa 2 more seconds to breathe, and then we'll get started.
Thank you, Hope. I'll try to talk slow, Melissa, so you can catch up, get your heart rate down. Welcome, everyone. As a reminder, today's webinar is designed for the use of our restaurant, hotel, travel and tourism, and other partners and other friends of PRLA. It's an off-the-record session, not designed for the press. We entertain all press inquiries, but not at this time. So if you're with the press, please disconnect. And in case I don't get an opportunity later, let me wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, and hopefully this year you'll find some blessings. They may not be as readily available as they usually are, but they are out there. So I hope that you have a joyous holiday. With that, I'll turn it over to Melissa.
Good morning, everyone. I apologize. I'll cover it in the webinar, but we had a press conference from the governor at 10:30 that I think John and I are kind of scrambling to address right now, and I will of course talk about it. But welcome back. Just so you all can clear your schedules, this is the last webinar until January 6th. So you get a vacation from me over the holidays. You're welcome. So everybody have a glass of wine next Wednesday at 11 a.m. During the normal webinar time. So with that, let's get into the reason you're all here today, which is after 3, maybe 4 weeks of me promising that there would be a federal package, we actually have a federal package. And it came together really over the course of the weekend. Our good Senator Pat Toomey held it up for a few days, but they did get it across the finish line on Monday, actually, and then going into, well, Sunday going into Monday. So they did pass it overwhelmingly in the US Senate and in the US House. We did end up at about 900 billion. You'll remember we started out at about 758 billion. Then we went up to kind of 978 billion. And then they landed with the package that's in place now at about 900 billion. The president had an announcement last night, or a Twitter video, whatever it is that he did, essentially saying that he would like more in terms of relief for individuals in the package. And then of course, kind of talking about the other part of the package, which has nothing to do with our relief package, but they did have to do a funding package. And unfortunately, every single funding package has the junk that has been on the internet over the last 12 hours or so. That's just the nature of those packages. But because now everybody is reading this 5,000-page bill, they're seeing how much government waste actually goes towards things that the American people probably don't always think are appropriate. But the president, has threatened that he might veto it. He has said he wants them to come back and pass more funding. Knock on wood. I think with the overwhelming way that it passed and the acknowledgement that we do need to get relief to the industry, the president will sign it. So that is what we expect, especially because this package does contain assistance for our industry specifically. Again, I'm going to preface the whole, I'm going to take you down and trying to work through everything that's in this package. We are calling this a down payment. This is not what is going to save the entirety of the industry. The Restaurants Act is not a part of this package, but it's something. And it's actually more than I think if you asked me 2 weeks ago what I thought we were going to get. So it really did come together as something that we can get right now, and we can come back for, gosh, around 957 when they come back to session in January. So let's go down into what I know, and it's gonna be a lot of information, so I apologize in advance, and more words than you've ever seen in a Melissa Weekly PowerPoint. General, just to cover the 501Cs, we've talked about this for my destination marketing organizations and my nonprofits. This package that was passed does include 501Cs. Now we put 6, but it is any type of DMO or trade organization. So if you're a C4 or another, C3s are always eligible. If you are a C, you are eligible for the loans. Now, there are entities that are not. So private clubs, for example, are not eligible as part of this expansion of the PPP. But 5 of my DMOs are. Your lobbying has to be less than 15% of your gross receipts. You can't use any of the funds for lobbying, and you have to have 150 or fewer employees. So you will be eligible for this here. Second round of PPP. There is a line between our industry, which is inclusive of restaurants and hotels predominantly, and other businesses. So you can see here for restaurants and hotels, you will get 3.5 times the 8-week amount that you use, which we will get into, as opposed to other businesses that only get 2.5 times. So this is an increase. First round of PPP, it was 2.5. Now you will be able to get 3.5. There is a cap. There's a 300 employee cap per location for hospitality. For any business that's not in hospitality, it's a 300 employee cap total. So the exemption that we had before for our multi-units, for our larger restaurant groups that a lot of them are suffering just as much as smaller ones, they will once again be eligible, but that was previously a 500 employee cap in round 1, 300 employee cap per location in round 2. And then the other part that is really key here is that you need to demonstrate a 25%, it actually might be 30% in the final package, revenue loss for any quarter in 2020 compared to 2019. Another difference from the first round of PPP. Before, you could have been doing gangbusters and you still got PPP funds. In this scenario, you need to demonstrate that you've actually been impacted by COVID to be eligible. And you can pick any quarter in 2020 compared to that same quarter in 2019 to check that box to be eligible. So I know over the summer, as you started to reopen, you might have been doing really well with your outdoor seating expansion. In that scenario, you would want to use another quarter if you don't check that 25% box. That 60-40 split still remains. So the 60-40 is 60% has to be used for payroll, 40% can be used for other entities. That is based on, there is an expansion now for what you can actually use the funds for. So before you can use it, and I'm pulling up my cheat document here, hold on. You can now use it for PPE, you can use it for investments in updating your business, and you can use it for just getting general operating things. So the 40% is expanded. Before it was only rent or mortgage. Now that is expanded to be more inclusive of general uses of it. So that has been broadened. The amount. This is, and I will caveat this because I know we're already starting to get questions. This is what's in the bill, and then we still have Treasury that's going to give us all the nuances. So just keep in mind that some of the nitty-gritty things that you're asking about right now, or you might be wondering about, we might not know immediately. But the amount you can be your monthly payroll in 2019, or your monthly payroll for the 12-month period before the origination of your second PPP. So that's how you can calculate, you can determine which one you want to use, and the maximum amount is $2 million per location. So no one can get more than $2 million. The other part is that you can choose before, remember with PPP round 1, I know we don't like to flash back to the pain of all of that. You were stuck with using it within 8 weeks. Now you can choose if you want to use it within 8 weeks or use that longer 24-week period after you originate with the loan. And then in statute now is a streamlined forgiveness if you got $150,000 or less on your first PPP. That is a ton of information. And I apologize in advance because I'm trying to give you as much that we know right now. So that's kind of the overarching gist of the PPP of where we are. Next slide. Okay. Other things that were included in this package and this was a concern for a few of you had sent me emails about this. If you received that $10,000 EIDL grant and then you received a PPP, your banks have been telling you that you need to deduct that from your PPP loan. So you don't get to keep the $10,000, it has to go be paid back, essentially. That no longer needs to happen. You no longer need to deduct the EIDL advance from your PPP loan. Also, if you did receive a loan under the EIDL, and that was a lot of you did that prior to CARES, before you had the PPP as an option, you did take out a loan. They did do a 3 additional months for people not in our industry, where you don't need to pay back, and restaurants can have up to an additional 5 months to begin paying back that loan if you did get the EIDL loan. Other things, taxes, yay. The PPP loans, we've talked about this before. The Treasury Department, in its non-infinite wisdom, was trying to say that if you used your PPP loans for anything, man, I like PPP is the word of the day today, for anything other than anything that would normally be tax deductible. So if you used your regular funds, they would be tax deductible. They were saying if you used your PPP for that, or the P3 for that, we'll use that instead, it is now tax deductible, and that is applicable to the first and second round. So that's huge. So you can continue to deduct those expenses from your taxes, especially now that we are at the end of the year and you will need to start thinking about your taxes. Employee retention tax credit has also been extended through the Q1 and Q2 of next year. That's up to $7,000 per employee. You cannot bundle the ERTC and the PPP. So if you are using, you have to use 60% of the P3 to pay your employees. So you can't use that to pay your employees and claim the ERTC. But if you use the P3 for an 8-week period to pay your employees and then you're done with it, then you can claim the ERTC for the remainder of Q1 or Q2. And then business meal deduction is extended to the end of 2022. So that was extended through next year and through the end of 2022. Okay, individual inclusions, things of note. $300 a week. This is important for all of us right now. It's not $600. Once upon a time, we hated $600. But there is an extension of unemployment as part of this package. So it's a supplement of $300 during the first round of recovery packages. It was $600 a week. Now it's $300 a week, and it's an additional 11 weeks. So this is on top of the 39 weeks that your employees had in 2020. So many of you have employees that were out of unemployment. They used up the maximum of 39 weeks. Now they will get an extra 11 weeks under this bill. So they will be able to reapply for unemployment if our state unemployment system actually works. But let's hope they got the kinks figured out by the time that happens. This is President Trump's big upset right now. It does include, quite frankly, it didn't include this at all. This came in within the last week. $600 for individuals making less than $75,000 a year, $1,200 for couples making less than $150,000. The president believes that it should be up to $2,000. I'm not sure if he's going to get any traction on that, but that he wanted it to be more assistance to individuals as part of this package. Things that were not included, because not everything is included, and I mentioned this before. $120 billion Restaurants Act, which is kind of the big restaurant-focused recovery package, is not included, and we've known that. They were not going to do a super specific save the restaurant industry package as part of this bill, because then the airlines want their specific save the airline package, and then every other industry believes that they need a package. So Restaurants Act was not a part of this. Another item that has been an issue for a lot of you that we're hoping the Treasury will fix on their own is rent forgiveness when paid to a similar party. So many of you might operate in your business, in a business that you're paying rent. It's owned by your family, but you're still paying rent. That is not a permissible use of the PPP right now. We were trying to get that addressed. That was not addressed in this bill. And then the extension of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. That is that federal mandate for you to pay, if you have less than 500 employees, to pay your employees if they are sick with COVID, need to quarantine because of COVID, need to care for somebody who has COVID, or has a child not in school because of a shutdown because of COVID. That is set to expire on December 31st of this year, and it is not going to be extended. So for my friends in Pittsburgh, this will trigger that emergency paid leave paid out of pocket beginning on January 1, if you were previously covered under Families First. For Philadelphia right now, there is a move to extend that. We believe there will still be an exemption for Families First, even if Families First no longer exists, but we're working with Philadelphia on that. So those are the main things that were not included in the relief package. Timeline. This is not going to come out tomorrow. The president hasn't even signed it yet. So these funds are not going to be a December 2020 release. The Treasury is hoping that funds will start to be disseminated at the end of kind of that first week in January. I think that might be optimistic, but they're looking at potentially the 8th or the week after to start releasing funds. To that end, the law does say that the Treasury has 10 days after the president signs it to develop its regs. And a lot of these unanswered nitty-gritty questions that we need an answer to will be in the Treasury regulations, and they have 10 days to do that. So we won't have anything really available until 10 days after it's signed. And to that end, our friends at the Pennsylvania Bankers Association have already offered and are planning to do a webinar for us to go over all of the details. We're waiting to schedule that webinar until the regulations are out, because all of the unanswered questions you have now, we need the regs for. So you might only get a 48-hour warning in terms of when that webinar is going to happen. But as soon as we have regs, we will be doing a webinar to go over those questions, because we know that you need to apply quickly. And there are new provisions of this, the 25% revenue hit. All of those are going to be part of the application, how you're quantifying that. So all of that will be included in that. So stay tuned for a webinar on that front. So let's talk about state, and then we'll go back to probably about 25 questions about the federal package. Every legislator under the sun is introducing co-sponsorship members to save our industry. If only they were so passionate about us about 2 months ago. Tons of legislation being out there, grant programs. Representative Cerisi and Representative Davis in the Southeast are looking to pull money from the Rainy Day Fund to help the industry. Senator Almond is looking at ways to kind of utilize tax incentives to help the industry. Representative Polinchuk is working with PRLA to develop a $500 million package if we get more federal funds to help the industry. And of course, the Senate Democrats have, it was in our update last week, a CARES 21 package that would borrow $4 billion and designate $300 million to help the industry. So there's lots of things that are floating out there, a lot of filing of legislation specific to the industry. As you know, PRLA shared with you last week our legislative priorities. We are moving forward and getting prime sponsors for that and talking with leadership about those priorities. Now things are going to change, because I'm going to tell you about the governor's press conference today. We initially were not sure if we'd be able to get that moving in January, but we might have some movement if people kind of coalesce what the governor did, and maybe we can supplement it with a few other recovery packages. So it's a good opportunity for us there. So the timeline, initially I was saying hopefully end of January, but probably beginning of March because of budget stuff during the month of February, but that might get bumped up a little bit. And to the end, the governor did have a press conference at 10:30 today. He announced that they found or moved over $145 million from the Workers' Compensation Fund to the general fund, with the intent and purpose and hope that it will be used to help industries that have been most impacted by COVID-19, with a specific focus on the restaurant industry. I used the word hope not because Hope's in the other room, but that the governor hopes that the legislature will do this. And this is the key part of this. He can move the money to the general fund, but the legislature needs to come back and determine how it's going to be used. He is saying that the purpose is to help those most impacted, like I said, specifically our industry. other industries that are most impacted. It is 145 million. It is not going to be the saving of our industry. We know that. But 145 million is better than zero, which is what we got in the budget this year. So he has called on the legislature to come back and appropriate those funds. We have not yet gotten the response from leadership in terms of that. I think PRLA's focus is going to be to use as much of that as possible, obviously specific to our industry, and keeping the pressure on that it's used properly. So the question is going to be, will the legislature feel the pressure to come back in January and do something sooner than later, or are they going to let politics get in the way and take their time and wait a little bit longer? And we're waiting to see how that happens. But the governor found 145 million. He wants it to be used to help us, at least in part, and PRLA's priority, and with all of your help, with pressure on your legislators, is going to be ensure that it's used for our industry. So that was the announcement that was made today. Merry Christmas. Local updates, I mentioned this. Pittsburgh's emergency paid leave is now in effect. So if you have an employee that has COVID, needs to quarantine from COVID, or needs to care for someone with COVID, they are eligible for that emergency paid leave. The taking care of a child who's not in school is not covered by this leave. But just as an FYI, like I said, if you have more than 500 employees, this is effective now. If you are covered by Families First, this is going to be effective on January 1st. We are looking for more information from the city in terms of regulations. There has been nothing posted as of yet. Philadelphia, you can tell I did this PowerPoint before they did their announcement yesterday. Philadelphia's mitigation order was supposed to end January 1. Of course, we know that's really January 4th because of the fact that the state mitigation order is in effect until then. Commissioner Farley did announce yesterday that while they will be lifting some of the mitigation in Philadelphia, they are extending the restaurant closures, casino closures, performing arts facilities, and indoor sporting events until January 15th, and then they will reassess those at that time. So for my restaurants in Philadelphia, Commissioner Farley has announced that indoor dining will continue to be banned in the city until January 15th. And we are in constant communication with him and his office and the mayor's office about getting us open as soon as possible. Statewide mitigation. John, do you want to fill in here on what the letter and everything, and then I can take the rest of it?
Well, unlike the previous orders from the governor, this one has a definitive end date, which is January 4th, which is actually, from a legal standpoint, good, because as you all know, and we've updated you on legal positions before, in all of the cases that have been brought in Pennsylvania and most of the ones around the country, all except one, the governors or the orders of the elected officials have held. And because of this, we want to reinforce the fact that the order needs to end on January 4th, and we've done that. I believe Melissa's going to share a letter in our daily update today that we sent last night to the governor and to the and to leadership in both the House and Senate and Secretary Levine as well. And that's designed to ensure that you can actually get open on January 4th, and that we can be prepared if need be with legal action to help get you open. So that's what's happening in that regard. And then probably turn it back to Melissa relative to lawsuit update. I will say, while she's queuing up the questions, Melissa has been in constant touch with Angelo Amador, president of the Restaurant Law Center at the National Restaurant Association, our partners in Washington, probably one of the foremost authorities on the sort of things that we're facing here, and has also been involved in every case involving restaurants around the country. So knows exactly what has happened, every case of any substance, I will say, not necessarily every individual case, but all of the state cases. So we've been in constant contact since the morning after the announcement, and we'll continue to do so to make sure that we're doing the best thing we can with the ultimate goal to get restaurants safely open and keep them open. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Melissa.
I'm muted. So just lawsuit update, as John said, PRLA is exploring our own legal avenues if needed. Also, we are also looking at, there is a lawsuit today that 3 o'clock, sorry, we have some restaurants in the southeast part of the state that did file a stay with Commonwealth Court. There's a hearing at 3 o'clock today. So we'll be closely watching that to see how that is handled. So we'll see what happens there. And of course, like I said, PRLA is pursuing other opportunities from that. As for, I know I'm getting a lot of questions about enforcement. John, did you want to talk about the letter that we sent, or did you already?
I did.
Okay.
I just mentioned that I mentioned what it was designed to do to reinforce the fact that January 4th is the announced reopening date at 8 a.m. and we will plan to be open then, and particularly highlighting the fact that there was millions of dollars of food and other product wasted or donated because of the short notice on the other order. Staff needs to be scheduled, so on and so forth. So we made that very clear. And we also reiterated what you've probably heard me say way more than you want to hear, that the real data shows that restaurants are not the cause of the spread, unlike the kind of unconnected mathematical formulas that they tried to cite when they did their press conference. But anyway, so that's the essence of it. It's part of a strategy to help ensure that you actually get reopened when you're supposed to get open. We would have liked to have had you be open on the 13th, the day after you were closed, when the governor was presented with the real data that showed that restaurants are not the problem. But for some reason I can't explain, they didn't see the errors of their ways and reversed their order.
Sorry, that's what I get for starting to read questions while you were talking, John. I apologize. As it pertains to enforcement, there's a few things out there. So I do know there's the Taste of Italy lawsuit, and I know that that group has been talking to many of you around the state. There was a court that ruled that the Department of Ag shutdown orders were not enforceable. The state has appealed that. And when that happened back in October, I said, yes, one court ruled that they are unenforceable, but since it's appealed, there is that gray area of if the Commonwealth wins, that all of those orders could be enforceable. So again, we're operating in a gray area. I know that you are seeing restaurants and businesses that are open and and enforcement is not happening. I can't speak to an answer to that. I can tell you that it's a calculated risk if people do it. And if you lose your liquor license, or there are other penalties that we have as court systems in Pennsylvania that seem to be supporting the governor, you just need to be careful. At this point in time, if you are open and you get a warning, I would urge you to, wow, that was a loud car. I would urge you to consider if you want to stay open, because once you get that warning, that's basically the opening shot from the enforcement agencies that are saying, after this will hurt your liquor license. After this, you will be cited. After this, you could get a shutdown order from the Department of Ag. Whether it holds up in court or not, until we get those answers, we don't know for sure what the repercussions are going to be. Again, I am not telling anybody what to do. I know that this is atrocious. I just talked to a reporter, that's why I was late before this, where I essentially said, there's no federal assistance that they have right now. People are trying to survive. And when you're trying to survive, they're going to do what they need to do. So we are not here to judge either way. I can only tell you that there are shutdown orders. At least 40 restaurants have been told to shut down. There will be more. And you just need to be careful if you do go down that path and you do get those orders until we determine what the path forward is there.
Melissa, we shared, as a reminder to all of you, we shared, I believe it was on the 12th, the 11th, Friday the 11th in the update, the actual order which details the enforcement mechanism in the governor's order. So you might want to take a look at that so you understand what the ramifications are. And I'm also, several of you have shared with me a link to a blog put out by a law firm in the the eastern part of the state that it's called the Governor's New Shutdown Order Considerations for Restaurants. I'll put the link up here if you want to check that. It's pretty well done from a standpoint. We can't really give legal advice on it, but this firm is putting this out there publicly, and it may be helpful to you. I've shared it with a few others. They said it's been helpful. So I'm going to put that up right now if you're interested.
Okay. Next slide. Yay, I can stop talking.
I don't know if I'm going to talk for that long, but I will try and talk slowly. So we are, as Melissa said, off next week with this webinar. We're not closed. We're just next week. We're not doing this webinar on this. So we'll come back on the 6th with our webinar. And the following day, we are going to be having coffee with the chairman, which is Bill Kowaleski. He'll be introducing himself to the membership and talking a little bit about what we'll be doing for 2021. And John and him will be covering some topics, and we'd love it if you would join us and ask some questions to the chairman of how things will be progressing along in 2021. Later today at 1:30, the National Restaurant Association is putting a webinar on. We do have the link up on our website for you to register. The Executive Vice President of Public Affairs, Sean Kennedy, and the Director of Healthcare and Tax Policy, Aaron Frazier, will be outlining what's in the latest bills, how it will help the restaurants, and what steps you need to take to utilize it. So please join that webinar, or at least sign up, because they know they do send out recordings too, but I think it could be useful in your understanding of what's coming up in January. I'm just going to reiterate about Carry Out PA and HARP. Please make sure you're on Carry Out PA. I know we have been doing a lot of promotion of this on our social media channels, trying to get the customers to go out and take a look at what's being offered by the industry. And also with HARP, we are in the middle of going through our applications, and all the donations that come in are helping these frontline workers, with us getting more and more grants out to them. So please take some time to let your customers know this is a great way for them to help you during this time when we are not operating with indoor dining. And as always, we do have training available, virtual experiences we're looking for. So we'll definitely be pushing that off more in January and February to help with the schools, because they will not be going back, a lot of them after Christmas break, in person. Due to the holidays, they will be going back remote for a few weeks. And the dining commitment, please take a look at that. That's a great way to promote your restaurant. The national organization has been doing a wonderful campaign, advertising campaign on a national level to promote dining and our restaurant industry. Getting yourself onto their website and having this commitment on your website will show your customers that you are definitely trying to make sure that it's the safest experience that they can have at your establishment. With that, I think I'm turning it over to you. And then, yes, from us at the PRLA, we are saying happy holidays. This is our virtual Christmas card we put together this year. So I will turn this over to you, Melissa, for some questions, if you're ready. If you're not ready, I don't know what I'll do.
Nope, I'm good. Oh, look, the card looks good. Sorry, I was looking up I was going through the questions and trying to find the answers to some of them to see if they were not in the regs, and some of them are going to be in the regs. So how is the 300 employee cap calculated, and what time period is used? Great question. I can't find the answer. All the guidance we have is businesses with 300 and fewer employees are eligible. I went to AHLA, I went to AHOA, and I don't see how the 300 is determined. I would like to presume it's going to be at the time of you applying for the PPP loan, because that would be a logical conclusion, that upon application you have to have less than 300 employees. John, you just unmuted, so I don't know if you have.
I was just going to tell Steve, we're going to be on that webinar with the National Restaurant Association this afternoon. If he doesn't have a chance to get on it, we'll send him a quick update on this if we get the answer.
Yep. Yeah, and I will say, for the 1:30 call, if Aaron Frazier is who I go to with all of the hard questions I don't know the answers to. So if he doesn't know the answer, then there really is not an answer to be had, because he is just brilliant. So, okay. Next question, 3.5 times what base payroll? Average month 2019 or average month fourth quarter 2020? It is 3.5 times base payroll, and you can do it for the monthly payroll for 2019. So you can take your average monthly for 2019 and base it off of that, or the monthly payroll for the 12-month period before the origination of the second PPP loan. So if you get your loan on January 15th, then you could use back to January 15th of 2019. Or if you apply for it later, because there's more funds available later and you wait, you can use that instead. So it's the monthly payroll for 2019 or the monthly payroll for the 12-month period before the origination of the loan. Any change for independent contractors still capped at 2.5% of 100,000. Yes, as far as I know, unless you have that hospitality exclusion. So essentially, yes, if you are not in hospitality, you are eligible still if you can prove the 25% revenue loss, but only at 2.5%. Hospitality is eligible for the 3.5%. I think this is a comment from Steve so that the grant program and the federal package aimed at supporting entertainment venues, will nonprofits be eligible to apply for those funds, or is this just for-profit businesses? I think we need information from Treasury, because to be honest, I didn't deep dive into the entertainment venue piece of it. I would presume it's going to be I would presume it's going to be a definition for an entertainment venue, regardless of whether it's for profit or nonprofit. That would be my presumption. But one, I didn't deep dive into that in the bill. And two, I think that probably is going to have to be a Treasury delineation. PPP round 2, $2 million max per location. So for multi-units, is it up to 2 million for each location, aggregate max of 10 million? Cynthia, yes, we think so. But I can tell you, we did ask this question to the National Restaurant Association on Monday specifically, and they were kind of like, we aren't 100% sure. They're not sure if it's 2 million and then you don't get more than 10 million no matter what, and what is the basis of the 10 million split. I don't know if we know the answer to that. That is how it reads, and that's what we think it is, but we definitely need more information. Those receiving PUA, did it stop at the end of November? Will this new extension allow those with PUA to receive unemployment compensation of $300? I've never had to learn so much about unemployment compensation in my life as I have like the last few months. People are still eligible for unemployment assistance and unemployment compensation, but at a maximum of 39 weeks. So what happened was people that were collecting unemployment beginning in March ran out, the 39 weeks ended. So for some of them, that might have been the end of November. The federal assistance, and this is going to be a hiccup in the interim, technically ends, the last payout for Pennsylvania, the last coverage period, I think is this weekend, and it's going to take a little bit for this to pick up again. But when this picks up again, it's going to extend that unemployment. So if somebody ended their unemployment in November because they used their 39 weeks, they will be eligible for an additional 11 weeks under this bill. Now, typically the states have to buy into it. Pennsylvania always has said that they're going to use it, but this is going to be an additional 11 weeks for those that have maxed out on the 39 weeks, or if they're at 37 weeks, they would get the 2 more weeks plus an additional 11. I think I answered the question, but Crystal, let me know if I missed it. I did. This is what Tracy always gets me. This is why I missed what John was talking about, because I was reading Tracy's, and when I read it, I thought Tracy had entered too quickly again. So I'll get back to your question, Tracy. Westmoreland gave CARES Act money to small businesses. What did Allegheny decide to do? I have not heard that Allegheny was providing any additional assistance. And so what happened in some counties, not all, had some CARES funds. And when we had the latest shutdown, they designated it specifically to our industry and to gyms, because we were the ones subject primarily in the latest shutdown order. So some counties have done that in terms of reopening up grant programs or opening up new grant programs. I have not heard that Allegheny has done that. And I'm not even sure if Allegheny has any funds left. And I don't know if any of my friends in Allegheny, I don't know if Allison's on the call. But if anybody there is familiar with it, I've not heard that Allegheny has done a grant program. How soon after the president signs the relief package into law will restaurants be able to go after PPP funding? They think it'll be kind of the second week of January. So it's going to be quick, but it's not going to be until January. So we need to get through the next few weeks. But once the president signs it, like I said, Treasury has 10 days to determine regs. They don't have to be final regs. So I would think we'd have regs, and then it's going to open up probably a few days after that. So me trying to be optimistic, I'm hoping for January 8th, but it might be the week after. Okay, here we're back to Tracy. Why is it okay for the deputy sheriff up here to openly state that he will not enforce the governor's order for no indoor dining and not lose his job? He stated this in the newspaper up here. So there are restaurants in Bellefonte that are openly defying the order and stating so openly in a newspaper, and it is openly not being enforced. Where does that leave the rest of us? A lot of local police, a lot of local enforcement agencies are saying, this is a state order. I don't see it within my purview to enforce it. Now, we do have some in other places that do believe it's in their purview. So we are seeing, regularly that police are saying this isn't really our problem. We have other things that we need to work on. But it does not stop LCE or Department of Ag or your local health department from enforcing. So that, I think, is where we're seeing the enforcement problems, because there's only so many state enforcement people going around. But we are seeing that. And that was similar. That happened back in the spring too. We had a lot of local authorities saying that it wasn't their role to enforce, and they're kind of sticking to that. But like I said, that's the problem we have, and we know it's a problem all of you have, that people around you are opening, you're doing the right thing, and it's not fair. And I agree that it's not fair, and I wish I had a better answer to that. But unfortunately, that's been pretty common among local enforcement. But like I said, LCE and Ag are the ones that can go after your license at the end of the day. So that's the problem too. Will there be the same forgiveness reductions as the last round of PPP beyond 60/40 requirement, full-time equivalent and wage reduction? If so, will there be some safe harbors, or do we need to wait for the Treasury regs for these answers? It's the 60/40 is still in place. Now the 40 is expanded, as I said, to PPE, cleaning products and services, reconfiguration of spaces to enable social distancing, and supplier costs such as perishable food. Those are all part of the non-forgiven. In terms of needing to have the full-time equivalent, I would presume that is still going to be in place. I can only assume the purpose of the first PPP was to have you keep your employees on payroll. But I think the same changes of where you offer people their job back and they don't want to come back. I would say all of those parameters are going to be in place. The purpose of this is to basically extend and make more lenient the second round of PPP compared to the first. So I think those, offering somebody their job and them declining, the good faith effort is going to stay in place. But again, those all came out in the Treasury guidance. And hopefully for some of it, we hope that they copy and paste. Others, we hope that they change a little bit. PPP, correct. You can't use money to pay rent if you own the property. We were hoping to get that fixed in this bill. It was not fixed in this bill. So if you own property and you would pay rent, and like I said, a lot of people, a family or a family trust owns the property. Under the Treasury guidance, that is not a forgivable PPP expense, and that did not get addressed in this bill. Are caterers and venue under the 3.5% of payroll, or is it the 2.5%? So if your NAICS code is in sector 72, then you are eligible for the 3.5%. And that's establishments providing customers with lodging and or preparing meals, snacks, and beverages for immediate consumption. I'm not sure what the NAICS code is for caterers, but if you are in section 72, you're eligible for the 3.5%. That one was what I was looking up because I wanted the definition of what 72 covered. The estimated launch date for PPP, we are hoping January 8th. It might be the week after. It will be in the front end of January. I don't see any unless the president vetoes the bill, and then they'd have to come back and do an override. But if things stay on schedule, we would be looking at the first half of January. Is there a list out yet of participating lending institutions? If they did it before, I'm assuming they're going to be doing it again. If your bank did a P3 loan before, I would presume that they're going to do it again. Before they were trying to, there is a kind of priority given to some more than others, but I would presume all lending institutions, but I don't know if an updated list has been ascertained for the P3. But I do know that the SBA does have a list on their, and the Treasury might as well have a list, and we can certainly get it from our partners within the state, from the banking associations here. We have great partnerships with the Bankers Association, the Community Bankers Association, and the Credit Union Association. So we should have more on that soon. Oh, good, I did get Crystal. Thank you, Crystal. Those going on layoff this week, will they get the $300, or doesn't that start until January sometime? We presume it's going to be backdated to when, so technically the federal unemployment assistance in place right now is ending this week. So the presumption is that it will pick up when the current one ends. As for backdating the 11 weeks, I am not 100% sure on that. It might just be if they used up their 39 weeks back at the beginning of November. I don't think they can backdate back to the beginning of November. I think they can only backdate to or start it when this one starts. But we should get more information, because that might also be up to the state unemployment office to decide as well how they want to handle that. So I don't have a clear answer on that, because it might be up to the state to decide how they want to do it. Unsure if this was mentioned. I did forget to mention this. Thank you, Matt. Representative Gary Day and Representative Ryan McKenzie, also Senator Lisa Boscola, plan to reintroduce their legislation from last session that would allow restaurants to continue to collect sales tax and not require them to remit the sales tax until after they are able to operate at 100%. The Greater Lehigh Valley Chamber of Commerce worked closely to get this bill introduced last session, and we're happy to see it being revived in January. Yes, that is another restaurant recovery bill. There's a lot that's being reintroduced. Senator Boscola actually came out and said she thought the governor could do it on his own. I can tell you there are some legal things that we're getting pushback from the legislature on, essentially saying that you can't collect the money and then keep it, because as soon as you collect it, it's technically the state's, and the state would have to basically gift it back. It gets complicated, but yes, it definitely would be a help. I do know that we've had some restaurants that are saying it doesn't help when you shut me down because I'm not making a lot in sales tax to keep it to help, but it certainly could help long term. Like I said, we did pitch it as part of a recovery package last year, and hopefully we get a little bit more traction this year. We're being devastated trying to do takeout only by open places. I know that you addressed this, and I thank you. Any further word on BLCE enforcement, like forced closings? Like I said, there were at least 40 orders requiring businesses to shut down that came out yesterday, and those will increase. And like I said, I know that some people are saying they're just going to tear the order down and then continue to operate. That's a legal counsel thing more than anything. But I can tell you, we don't know what the repercussions could be long term. So like I said, you could be up for renewal with your liquor license, and I don't know how the LCB is going to handle that. But they are, more than ever, I'm seeing more citations, and I'm seeing more orders to shut down than I have in the past with any other shutdown. The Lehigh Valley Chamber launched a small relief grant package. Yes, Steve, if you could send that over, we'll include it on our daily update. If laying off employees effective January 1, 2021, will the additional 300 be retroactive to this date, or is it only retroactive to date effectively available? like I said, I think it's going to be retroactive to pick up when the current law ends, which is this week. That's my assumption, because I like to apply logic to things, which I know is still crazy 10 months into a COVID crisis, but I'm still trying to apply logic. But we will get that information once the state signs on. And it, like I said, it might be up to the state unemployment office to decide, but I think it's going to be retroactive. It was before, just as an FYI, when they did the 600, that was retroactive as well. So logic, I'm trying. Regarding, I knew Allison would know. Regarding Allegheny Aid, they recently announced the 0% interest loan. I don't know if this is CARES Act money. So Allegheny is doing zero interest loans. I will say what you're all thinking. No one needs a loan right now, but it's there. Any discussion on places that refuse to abide by mitigation efforts not being able to receive forgiveness? That I would be pretty much impossible, because it's a federal program and this would be state enforcement. So I don't think the two speak. It could be an issue in terms of, could the governor say if you receive a grant, it becomes a loan if you're in violation? That seems legally scary to me, but it can't be connected at all to the PPP, because it is a federal and state are two different things. And Allison just put on the details for the Allegheny County loan: 36 months, 0%, up to 100,000. First 6 payments can be deferred. Thank you, Allison. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the thank you. Are businesses that open in 2020 eligible for this new PPP? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you can prove the revenue loss. That might be your issue. Proving a 25% revenue loss if you opened in 2020. I mean, maybe if you opened in January and then you lost 25% later, you could use that. But I think that could be, you'd be eligible, but you have to prove the revenue loss. Assume we can apply for second PPP before first PPP is forgiven. Again, logic, we have not gotten that for sure. I do know that you cannot, not that anybody could at this point, but you can't use the two loans together. So you can't use first round PPP with second round PPP. But no, the way the forgiveness is happening, it's taking forever. So we have not heard, I don't believe you need to get it forgiven, but the first PPP you have until the end of the year. So you have to delineate the two PPPs if you haven't gotten the first one forgiven. So we think that's fine. But that is a question we've been getting a lot, and we've been asking a lot, and everybody's saying, I think. So until we know, I'm going to stay with I think. We are closed in our restaurant, bar, bowling center, etc. Our competitors have remained open with no rules. Are they also eligible for PPP or any other aid? Again, that's the problem with state and federal. The feds aren't looking at Pennsylvania mitigation and saying you didn't follow PA mitigation, therefore you're not eligible. And the feds, of course, have different rules and guidelines and haven't necessarily been saying to shut down restaurants either. So no, there is no kind of speaking between federal and state. Melissa, do you know if you can voluntarily exit from the self-certify program? Not that I'm aware of. I mean, you can email them and say that you want to be removed from the list and just operate at 25%. They still have your information. So, I mean, I don't know if you need to voluntarily remove yourself. You would just go back to 25%. So, but there is an email address on the self-certification that you can email and ask to be removed. Thank you for the thank you. Before we end, because gosh, you guys are going to give me 5 minutes left. Since we're not here next week, and this Christmas card is fantastic. I'm sorry Macy isn't included, but I do want to wish everybody just as good a holiday as you can make it. And I can tell you that I am planning to do a penguin swim and jump in the Atlantic Ocean on January 1st of 2021, because if that doesn't cleanse me of 2020, I have no idea what is going to. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure we start next year with the bang and with a fresh start. But thank you all. John has some words, but just for your faith in us and sticking with us as we have just desperately tried to struggle through navigating this for you. And every day I'm thankful to have you guys as members and partners, and looking forward to coming back. I think some of the staff is going to take a few days off. I'm going to take a few days off, but looking forward to coming back in 2021 with more force and strength than ever to get us through the last remaining months of this crisis. And wishing you all a very happy holiday and a happy new year. And with that, John, I will leave, more logical words to you, but.
Thanks, Melissa. I don't know that there are more logical words, but let me say what's kind of funny about this weekly webinar is that the people that tune in every week are kind of like our friends now, and we get together once a week. I know you'd rather not be with us, but I know Melissa feels that way, and you actually in many ways help to cheer us up each week when we're really struggling to keep our chins up, if you will. But most of all, I really have probably two groups of people to thank. One are the ones that are in that Christmas card over on your left there. Some of you may be aware that we significantly reduced the size of the PRLA team right when this started, because we had to ensure that we could survive and thrive and do all the things that you need us to do. And by the way, that's worked. We're very solid, and we're going to be around for a long time to come. And these people are going to be there to serve you for a long time. But it's amazing when I look at what they've done, sometimes doing double, triple duty, quadruple duty, and everything that they've been asked to do, they've been able to do. And yet each one of the 10 people have reached out to me and said, what else can I do to help? And that's been just incredible from our standpoint. From my standpoint as a leader, I've never led an organization I'm more proud of than this one. And you probably know from how long I've been in the business, I've led a lot of organizations. And also our board and officers have been phenomenal this year. Bill Kowaleski stepped in as the interim chairman when our chairman had to move to Georgia right when this started. And Bill has attended almost 100 meetings this year. It's incredible the work that he's put in as a volunteer. And the rest of our officers, there's 3 other officers, have spent more time with me this year than all the officers combined in the 6 years I've been with the association. And our board of directors has met 8 times this year to consider issues that we need to deal with. That's as much as they usually meet in 4 years. So we're very blessed to have this organization, and couldn't be more thankful for it. And as I look at the few silver linings this year, those are the big ones. And you're looking at them right there on the screen. They are phenomenal. And as Melissa said, we would do anything to help you. We always feel like we can't quite do enough, but we're trying to do everything that we can. So with that, thanks again, Melissa. You do a phenomenal job, not only with the webinars, but everything you do, as does everyone else on the team. Hope, Eric, Diane, Ben, Kendra, Heidi, Steph, Paula, Christine. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for being loyal and being with us every week.
Thank you, everybody. And I think Melissa did answer your question about,
yes, if anything stupid happens over the next 10 to 12 days, you will hear from us. Do not worry.
Yeah, our daily updates will still be going out on an abridged version. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I hope
Merry
everybody
Christmas.
Safe holidays.